Mid-size sedans are not a big market and they're declining, but there's a lot of choice. Alan, today?
We have 3 cars in that ever-declining segment. We've got the Honda Accord Hybrid. We've got the Hyundai Sonata N-Line. Both of those only come in one trim level, but the Honda with 2 different engines. And of course the Passat 206 TFSI
Station wagon.
Station wagon, 4Motion, because it's part of the VW group. Now, the first thing that we noticed, David, is the huge differences in the way, excuse the cars that are running, it's the only way we could get the headlights on. Not even with the ignition on could we get the headlights to stay on. We've got each one with high beam, but there's an interesting fact about these with the way the matrix system works.
Clearly here we have this enormous number of individual lights, which makes for picking up various parts of the road ahead of you, depending on whether another car's coming in your direction.
And you'll do anything for a good pickup, David. Would you like to pick up the Passat? The little individual points of light that make up the individual cells, and that's what changes, David, as the car approaches.
It's almost a little bit of the old Nissan 370Z in that.
It is very much, and what I do like is the fact that the daytime running light runs all the way up the bonnet. That's something you see very rarely.
Sunroofs, which is not my favourite feature, but this is one that's fantastic, particularly for passengers in the back, so that they can get a more airy view, a less claustrophobic view.
And of course the front part does slide back over the top of the rear bit.
Again, you have a very long 2-component part of that, which gives people in the back, as you can see with the baby seat, gives them a chance to be more airy. This has a smaller sunroof, and while it can pop up, it's not nearly as revealing to the backseat passengers.
The amazing thing about this fastback look of both the Honda and the Hyundai is the fact that it looks like it's a fastback. And it is a fastback, but it's not a hatchback. Let me show you what I mean.
Not a notchback would be good, wouldn't it? Like a Stinger.
Yeah.
Which?
In the back of the Honda, there's not a lot to see. It is quite a capacious boot, but you've got a fairly shallow floor to accommodate batteries and a space saver spare. And of course, the seats do go down, but the opening is quite narrow because of the bulkhead. And you can lower the seats from up here. I'm a personal favourite, a fanboy of station wagons. You can see this one's got the back windows blacked out VIP style. And to get into the back of this, I think these, by the way, it would be remiss of me not to mention these really cool tail lights that change to brake lights from here to there as you brake. And of course this one is the only one of the trio that has all-wheel drive, and 4Motion is Volkswagen's all-wheel drive version. VW symbol opens the car. This is the only one that's electric. Volkswagen has a few surprise and delight features, like the Skoda we had last week. There's your normal retractable luggage cover, a bunch of cargo nets. And so that you don't get creamed if you've got something in the back, there's this, and that will go up into these, that will go up into these, that will go up into these.
That will easily go up into these.
It will easily go up into there if you get inside the boot.
I think, also maybe from the back seat.
And like the other cars, you can lower the back seats from levers in the back. Under the boot floor is, David, a full-size spare. And you'll notice the wires going over into the bass speaker. We're moving over to the Sonata, which I think has the best look. Now, I surprised and delighted David before. To open the boot from the outside, again, this is not a hatchback's car, you press the top of the H, David, look.
That's the first thing a dealer should explain to you to save you the embarrassment of your new car as you push every other thing that they would normally do to open the boot.
And you're absolutely right. Again, excuse the sound from the car. There's a very spacious boot in here. Again, you can lower the seats from up top. And underneath is a space saver spare. I don't mind a space saver spare. I know you're limited to 80 kilometres an hour, but at least it's not the goo. And finally on the side, let's just talk about the wheels.
19-inch wheels, low profile. The design, I think, is very distinctive, not spoke-like, but almost a bit web-like. More traditional spokes wheels, but very thin. Look how revealing they are to the disc brakes behind.
Absolutely beautiful. And the Honda wheels, David?
Honda wheels, it's a bit more American, isn't it? A bit more big and bulky, a bit more amount of material to be involved in it, but
Absolutely.
again, low profile. I think you'll notice that I think they're 19-inch and these are 18. I think the profile is stunning. When I first saw it, I thought this is a limousine.
Absolutely right.
The Passat is better than a station wagon, a slab-sided station wagon, and a sloping roof. Gee, it's long, isn't it?
It is long.
Have a look at the length of that butt.
Huge back doors, Dave. We'll have a look at those in a minute.
But the sloping roof makes it much better, otherwise it would look pretty bland.
What do you think of the profile of the Sonata?
The only thing I say about that is I find that little bit of, almost a bit of Harbour Bridge-ish that Mercedes are worse at even, but nonetheless it's modern and it's very revealing, and it has touches like this here and this line here. Look at this, this is strong.
How's that door opening, David?
A nice sizable clunk. Oh look, I've got a blind there.
And the thing is, we've had to leave the engine switched on so that the front seat doesn't slide back. How's the space?
Over the Christmas period, I'm going to have some adults in here. I think quite good. Just not quite enough support under here, but plenty of room here.
And we'll talk about what's inside later as the rain is coming.
Volkswagen.
Nice wide door.
Oh, look. Lovely big.
Geez, that's limo-like, isn't it?
Again, not full support under here, but room to put my feet under there. Seat is right back.
And again, a blind on the door.
A blind on the door, and I've got temperature control.
So a third zone. Let's have a look at the Honda.
Oh, now look, this is comfort. Oh yeah.
That's got
look at that.
That's got far more leg room than either of the other two.
It means that my feet are further forward, and so I'm getting support under this part of my leg.
It's a vast amount of space. And I also like the fact that you've got buttons on the other side to push the passenger's front seat forward.
Yep.
And control it from the back seat, so that if you are a passenger, you can treat this like a limo. The interior of this Passat is absolutely beautiful.
Okay, I don't mind that. I like the fact that this is
this is real metal. And it's got drive modes, but it is incredibly comfortable in comfort mode because the suspension is adjustable. We're going back in complete silence. It must have only turned...
For you and me, that's a record.
Let's get around there.
Oh, the clarity of that picture's stunning, isn't it?
Well, it's only a relatively small 2-litre engine, but it's not turbocharged.
Yeah.
So it gets that extra torque from the electric motor. It's more than adequate though. Like, this is getting along at a nice rate where it's the speed limit already.
I'm trying to remember the combined horsepower. There's one at 158.
That's what this one is, yeah. The other one's the
140.
It's a 1.6 turbo,
yes.
the non-hybrid version. This is lovely on the highway though. This is really lovely. And also rather smart is the driver's console, and this is the only one of the mainstream brands, as far as I know, that has twin cameras in the digital driver's cluster. I think that's just genius.
Now this is where it'd be nice if it had all-wheel drive.
Absolutely right. Now I've only got this in normal mode, but I still managed in this rain to get a bit of a tinkle-dee-doo-dah up.
That's not too bad though. There's some cars that it would have gone crazy under those conditions.
What's the best car overall? Well, each car had their own personality. Each one was better at doing one thing than the other, but overall, they were all pretty close. For a full point score, look at our written review. Top points were for Honda's fantastic fuel consumption, with its hybrid drive doing 4.3 kilometres combined, but that went down to 3 and some change around town. I mean, that's just crazy. All cars were pretty smooth on the road, though the Hyundai was a little bit firm because it tends towards a sporty handling. In fact, the Hyundai was just sensational and the power was absolutely extraordinary. Of course, the front wheels kept breaking traction in the wet, but that only added to the excitement. The most comfortable car overall, believe it or not, was Passat, with its fantastic adjustable suspension, its drive modes that gave the engine so much more power. The Sonata had the most power, and it also had the most gears. It had 8 gears. The Passat was by far the nicest car to drive overall, certainly the most comfortable. It had 6-speed DSG, which we thought was a little bit disappointing. The Honda, of course, has a CVT, and that'll never be a favourite. But the best car overall, and the one that got the most points, surprisingly, was the Honda.
So at the end of rather an arduous test, Alan, what's your summation?
I think the car I'd probably take home is the Honda, and that's because most of my travel is in the city. It's not the car with the most stuff, it's not even the most comfortable, but it is the most economical by a country mile. It's going to be 1/3 to a quarter of what the other two will run in town.
And I like it if it was a family car for the city. I would pick, if I had a family car that I was going to take on holidays and periodically, love the space of the Volkswagen. But if I was going to on my own or with just one other person, I'd have the Hyundai.
The Hyundai, interesting. The Passat, don't get me wrong, is a country mile the best car to drive.
Yes.
The Hyundai was the most surprising by far.
And they've come a long way.
And
it's the most stylish.
They've come a long way. And look, if it was a hybrid, I'd take that. I would. But having said that, David, you know what the time is?
Oh, indeed, it's raining.
It's time to leave a like.
Or make a comment.
And above all, there to subscribe. No, over to your other side. Over to your other side. Can't get good help.